Hello and welcome. As a filmmaker, I go to the cinema a lot, at least once a week. I've been several times in the last week. I saw Begona, Happy End, I saw Frankenstein, I saw Roofman, and I also saw what I consider to be the worst film of 2025. Dare I say it? Die My Love. And this is subjective, of course. I'm not saying this is the worst film of all time, or I'm not saying people are not allowed to like or even love this film. No, people are allowed to have any kind of feeling they want about this film. They can be their favorite film for as far as I care, and all props to them. It's art is subjective, of course, and one man's trash is another woman's treasure, or vice versa. So here we are. But this video is me trying to explain why I think it's not a brilliant film, to put it lightly, and what filmmakers and storytellers can get out of it being what I deem to be such a low-hanging fruit of a film. and just to start it off with a little analogy, or anecdote rather, I was outside Cinema Nova after seeing this film, and I saw a group of girls talking nearby a group of guys. These are all different demographic to me, so I was just watching on carefully with my ears out like a good writer, and and it seemed like they'd all actually seen the same film, Die My Love, and the girls were saying, at least one or two of them, there was several of them, "Oh my god, that's such a great film," or whatever. And the guys are like, "Oh yeah, yeah." These are just kind of like simple guys, and the girls were kind of like, having small talk with them. And then I had to say, oh my god, I'm sorry, but I couldn't stand the film. And then one of the girls actually shouted out, "So glad you said that. I couldn't stand it either." True story, right? And so it seems like that the girls could have just been shit testing the guys, picking what they thought to be, a film that was not very good at all. Or at least this one girl was staying quiet until she got some other kind of validation about it. Culture is an interesting thing because it's all about what people like or don't like. But the good thing about culture and films is that it gives people something to talk about. And we're not supposed to all like or something. We don't have to dislike something, but to have feelings about it and to have thoughts about it too. That's a great thing about being human, being in a free society. We can express our ideas about why we like or don't like something. So here, let me get into it. Number one, I'd say this movie really lacks intentionality, and I'm say primarily from the part of the character, because it's only a few minutes into the film, almost immediately, that we realize that we are following the main character, Jennifer Lawrence, right? If I was to dissect her role in this particular film, her character just lacks intentionality. What is the motivation for her character? Yes, she's a new mother. No, she doesn't have to be Superman or Superwoman or the character she was um, in the Mockingbird, and some kind of amazing person who defeats villains and all this. No, but what is she trying to do? We can see that in her film, she has this idea of becoming a writer, but that is kind of disheveled and thrown out the window, and her dreams are destroyed, unfortunately. So she kind of completely abandons it, very, very unfortunately. So it's not even to the point where it becomes greatly tragic, like Requiem for a Dream, but more of a kind of frantic tragedy or kind of chaotic tragedy. There is this tragic sense of it, but it does seem very loose and open and vague. Again, this could have resonated with other people, doesn't resonate particularly with me. There is an intentionality on the side character, Rob Patterson's character. He wants to be the loving, caring father, and he does. And he does a good job. In fact, the only reason this film is not completely an abysmal, utter bottom disaster, I think, is Robert Pattinson's performance. He lifts this up from almost nothing to something. He's a great actor. I haven't seen his whole repertoire, such as Twilight, but I was amazed at his performance in Good Time. He's proven himself to be a great actor, and he carries his part in this film, but unfortunately, that's not enough to carry the whole film because the film is based around Jennifer Lawrence's character, and when her character is not really making sense, then it's hard to make sense out of his character and the other characters, such as Sissy Spacek's character. She's a great actress, as we know her for, like Carrie and such. But it's hard to make sense of the other characters when she's not making sense. Some people might say, "Oh, well, the point of her character was that she's not supposed to make sense," but then that's kind of like a trump card. And I was thinking that the film is about a character having a breakdown, a mental breakdown. But in a way, so many films are like that because all films are based on conflict. And what happens when people reach high levels of conflict is people have breakdowns. So it is such a relatively common theme, but done with a lack of clarity and such great vagueness about it. And that intentionality of a character, it almost seems like that has come out of the writer and director themselves. Again, I'm not saying the writer is bad, the writer being Enda Walsh, Lynn Ramsey, and Alice Birch, based on the book by Ariana Harwitz. And the film was directed by Lynn Ramsey. I actually saw Lynn Ramsey's other film, We Need to Talk About Kevin, and I thought that was a lot better. So again, she's capable of great work. And if I have to out myself for something controversial, some kind of politically incorrect talk, only a few minutes into the film starting, and this was before I thought it was an abysmal film, but just a few minutes in, with such a feminine attitude about the film, I don't think they had opening credits or anything, and I didn't read anything about the film. I just said out loud, I said, I bet this film is directed by a woman. It's not that women are bad directors. One of my favorite films is directed by a woman, American Psycho by Mary Harron, but just the kind of had a certain softness about it, certain femininity about it, while still tackling a difficult, hard subject matter. So there did seem to be this lack of intentionality. And I'll move on to the second point, which is lack of cause and effect. Because, okay, yes, we get it that this film is about a woman who's having a breakdown after having a child. It's postnatal depression is what it's called in the English language. And this might happen to a lot of people. Only coincidentally, a week or two, some woman was chatting to me randomly, in an art class that I went to, and she said was about how she's talking to me about how she had terrible postnatal depression that has affected her up until this point in time, but she got out of it, but she still has other conditions from the same time. So it was kind of in my mind that there are a lot of women that do face this issue. So it may be an important issue for women to talk about. And who am I to judge? Like, I'm not saying it's a bad film. I'm not saying it's not supposed to resonate with people. I'm saying I thought it was a poorly executed film, which does sound like a bad film, but I'm trying to make the distinction between that for me and for probably people of my demographic, creative men, probably men in general, to be honest, they're not really going to enjoy this film or get much out of it. It's not made in a way that I would say is very male friendly because of its pacing and the kind of logic to it. It's a very emotional film, which again, it might connect to women or people who have had this particular experience in life, but people who are not women or who have not had this particular postnatal depression experience in life may not be able to connect to it. So this point of cause and effect, because okay, yes, we get that this woman has had postnatal depression or she's experiencing postnatal depression, but she's almost like killing herself repeatedly. She's doing things which are suicidal. She's, spoiler alert, bashing her head into glass, mirrors, walls, breaking her body, trying to jump out of a car, putting herself and other people's lives in danger. So why is she experiencing such intense postnatal depression? Maybe some people do. I don't know. Like that's not something I was aware of, that it can be so extreme for some people. But assuming people want to be a mother, like it seemed at the start she wanted to be a mother, so there is this kind of lack of logic. It kind of seems like all of a sudden things flipped. There should have been perhaps a scene or multiple scenes, at least a scene kind of juxtaposing how her life was great, or in her eyes idealistic, before the child, and then when she had the child her life turned to shit, so to speak. Like how she could be visibly seen to becoming depressed by this kind of before and after. That would make logical sense. That okay, wow, you were living, you were so peaceful, you were able to, you wanted to be a writer, you could sit down and write and all this, and then seeing, okay, now you have the baby just wah 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 wah, like crying all the time, and you can't concentrate, like it's driving you crazy. That would make sense. We didn't see any of that, and the only kind of resonance to a cause and effect element really that I could see in the film was when she's talking to a psychiatrist when she goes into the mental institution. She says about how when she was young, she was abandoned at the beach briefly, but it just doesn't quite add up because it seems to be, the way she explains it is such a mediocre experience, as if okay, she was abandoned briefly as a child. Again, not trying to dismiss anybody's experiences, but it seemed like something that everybody more or less would have experienced. I mean, so, a lot of people experience very intense things as children, much more intense. I experienced far more intense things, many bones broken as a child. But even I found it hard to relate to her, not because of the gender, but just the lack of cause and effect. Maybe if we saw that, not to push anything of too deep a subject unnecessarily, but if it was that she was actually seriously abused as a child, that would make more sense as to why she would suddenly blow out now that she's having a child of her own. Maybe having a child reminds her of when she was a child, she experienced some severe abuse. That would make sense. The other issue with the cause and effect element is that there was several times in the film I kept on expecting Robert Pattinson's character to just leave. How could he stay with this woman? She was destroying her own life and destroying him. It's not really completely fair for me to say that because they were together trying to be partners and they had a child, so they should look after him. But she was also endangering the child's life. So, as a good father, perhaps he should have been thinking more about his child than his partner who is potentially going to kill their child. That's a philosophical kind of question. But to bring it out of the frame back to the production side of things, I couldn't even take Jennifer Lawrence's acting seriously in that because the character was so all over the place. I just didn't understand it. And I thought if it was what I would consider to be the highest caliber of actor, they would likely have kept on pushing to know why is the character supposed to do this and this and this and this and this. They would make more sense out of it. I believe she kind of hit the marks of the emotional elements here and there. Like, yes, she does look and feel like a crazy person, but it's this thing about wanting meaning in film, that we're searching for meaning, and if there's not meaning there, we're still searching for it. So I was searching for a meaning that I couldn't particularly find unless it was that there wasn't supposed to be meaning, which is not kind of enough meaning. I felt bad for the characters, and that didn't seem enough. I wanted to feel more than just bad for the characters. I wanted to have dynamic emotions for the characters, feel a change of emotions. But it's almost like I just felt bad for 90 minutes. Films are supposed to be more of a roller coaster, not like a drifting piece of wood in the water. Robert Pattinson, he does add this kind of this these sparks to it. He does have his talent, and he brings it where he's you. But I don't know how he could have stayed, and he marries her again. I said spoiler alert earlier, so you should have listened to me then if you didn't. But he marries her. Why do you marry this woman who's dangerous to your own life and the life of your child? He must have been so in love. But then back to the cause and effect. What made you so in love with this severely crazy woman? Okay, she's a woman. She's got two legs, two eyes, two arms, and something in between her legs. But why, besides the fact that she's a woman and you're a man, are you so attracted to her? She's not like Jennifer Lawrence in the film. She's a woman in the film. Maybe we should have seen the day that they met, seen the romance flair, seen the passion, seen the chemistry, seen those beautiful moments that they had. We get like a tiny, tiny glimpse of that, but it's kind of like 1% of that and 99% craziness. It does start with them, again, spoiler alert, banging on the kitchen floor. Cool. Yeah, I'm sure like a lot of random movie men would bang endless movie women on their kitchen floors. Like, that's not really enough, right? That could have been the start of the porno. It's not like it's very artistically done, but I'm just saying, where is the motivation? Where is the cause and effect? That is what I found lacking in this film. Ah, and the third thing, like I mentioned earlier, is the dynamics, the up and down, the mountain, the roller coaster. I didn't find this journey. I just found it was punch after punch of doom and gloom and sadness. There were these little moments of upbeat, again, tiny, tiny little moments of upbeat. Not enough. It could have been more humoring. I love to see dark comedies. Like I said earlier, American Psycho, or like No Country for Old Men, or like Fight Club. You know, like when things are terrible for the characters, but they have a certain kind of wit or kind of flair or certain kind of like this backhanded kind of humor there. There's something kind of funny. There was not really much to laugh about here at all. You don't need to laugh at anything. If the film was constructed well enough, it wouldn't have needed any comedy, but because it was so vaguely dark, we needed something to release all that tension. And there wasn't much at all. When she's interacting with the grocery store clerk, she's kind of rude. That's not very nice, you know? She could have maybe had some real wit there. And she just doesn't have any real charisma to her to kind of draw you in. She doesn't really even have, if you think of these films like Nymphomaniac, or, you know, the kind of femme fatale films of the 1990s, you know, or 1980s, you know, Body Double and Body Heat and all this. She's not even like this sultry, dark, feminine kind of character that you kind of just watching her kind of move around, and like you can't get your eyes off her. It's more like you can't keep your eyes on her, unfortunately. It's a shame because I think this film had enormous potential, especially using such well-known, incredible actors. I think all three of those main actors are great actors, especially Robert Pattinson. I'm also, you know, variable to CC Spacek, but Jennifer Lawrence, I know she could have done better. And just to tell you the funny way I entered into this film, the girl I was taking to the film, I told her, I don't know anything of this film, but she knows I always go to see films, and that I said Robert Pattinson's a great actor. I'm not so keen on Jennifer Lawrence, but I'm sure she can do right. And she's like, oh, why do you like Jennifer Lawrence? I'm like, oh, I just don't click with her. But you know, whatever, she's alright. But you know, yeah, just something about her. Anyway, after so many minutes of Die My Love, I whispered in her ear. I said, this is why I don't like Jennifer Lawrence. She looked at me instead with like really like funny eyes, you know. But yeah, she also, the girl I took, she couldn't stand it at all. She like wasted my 2 hours, and that's a shame because who wants to feel like they've wasted time going to the cinema? I never feel like I waste time going to the cinema because even if I see what I'll consider a bad film like this, I feel like there's always something to gain out of it, like how I would have done everything differently, analyzing all the cinematography, analyzing the acting, analyzing what I believe was the directing taking place, all these different factors, the lighting, the kind of production design. There's a lot to kind of just take in just as a filmmaker observant. So it's never a waste of time. And I think any filmmaker, even any storyteller, shouldn't feel like they're wasting any time going to the movies, especially the movies when you're watching a film, because you're able to see everything on a really big screen and enjoy it. You know, it's kind of like our church for those of us who really love cinema, those cinephiles of us. And that's probably the moral of the story, is that we can always gain something out of these films. I'll probably rate it 3 out of 10. The reason I don't rate it 1 out of 10 is Robert Pattinson and CC Spacek. CC Spacek. Yeah, they were great. They were amazing. Their parts, especially in such a difficult film. But again, incredible vagueness to it, lack of dynamics, lack of intentionality, and lack of cause and effect. It was trying to be poetic. It was trying to be highly emotional. There's always different elements pulled in from all over the place. It doesn't work. It doesn't come together in the end, unfortunately. We can't really make anything of it except that it is not an enjoyable or intellectually sound experience from my point of view. I don't know if I'll ever be able to watch it again because I did find it a very hard film to watch because of the lack of charisma from a main character and the lack of really engaging moments and the lack of dynamics as we were talking about. I commend the filmmakers and the actors for giving it a shot. They may have done their best. In some ways, I have to admit, it does remind me of my first feature film, A Bit of Lime, because it's based on a couple, especially from one of their point of views, and they're dissatisfied with their kind of modern American life, and their life starts spiraling out of control. So that's the kind of similarity there. But good for me, I feel like I had some things that performed on another level to this film. Not to say my first feature film was a 5-star, incredible, Oscar-worthy film, but it does kind of make me feel better about my first feature film because I just thought my first feature film was on a whole nother level. That I did have this intentionality of my main character was trying to kind of get somewhere, get away, leave their old life, distinct old life behind. There was cause and effect. You saw how the character in my first feature film called Tom, how he has a kind of terrible life that he doesn't like at all, and then he wants to live a new, different party Caribbean life. And it's very dynamic. Things change a lot quite dramatically throughout the course of the film. Just to kind of compare my eyes from my own filmmaking to this kind of film. I'm sure everybody involved in this film, the filmmakers and the actors, they're all talented. They can do incredible works in the future. And as creatives, we are always going up and down ourselves in life. So we're making good things, bad things, great things, regular things. The point is to keep on creating. So good thing that they are just doing their thing. And it wouldn't turn me off seeing a film from definitely not Robert Pattinson or Cece Spacek, not even Jennifer Lawrence, and not even the director whose name I have forgot, but her name is Lynn Ramsey. I would still see her film. I would kind of root for her. Hopefully, she can do something more captivating this time. But I thought I'd share this as a kind of an in-depth look at what I would have to say is the worst film of 2025, having seen over 100 films this year, and the lessons we as filmmakers and storytellers can get out of it. I hope this helps you, something to think about, and I hope you have a great week of writing, discussions, watching films, and enjoying life. All the best for now.